Not all the intelligent beings that travel the wild spaces of the multiverse are humanoids. Quite a lot of them are not, and they really need to get more attention in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So today, let's settle back. Go grab yourself a tasty beverage. We're about to get deeply nerdy as we learn about the Dracon, the dragon-centaurs of Spelljammer. In print, the Dracon first made their appearance in 2nd edition sourcebook Spelljammer AD&D Adventures in Space Lorebook of the Void, written by Jeff Grubb and published in 1989. Essentially, all of the information on the species is covered here on a couple of pages, but there is so much depth to them. They are really interesting as individuals and as a culture. The location of their homeworld is a bit of a mystery, though it has been described as dry and arid, dominated by grasslands and desert terrain, with shallow seas and an inclement climate. The planet has a single moon, and it does seem that not only are the Dracon highly cautious and reluctant to talk about their homeworld, it may be that they actually travelled so far across the multiverse from it that they've forgotten where it actually is, or this theory may just be something they've invented to further protect their planet. Physically, a Dracon is a large centauroid being with a body shaped more like a brontosaurus. Its 4 feet are flattened like those of an elephant. It has long, agile tail, the torso of a humanoid with 6-fingered hands and a head of a dragon. Their skin is also an elephant-like grey and fairly durable. They do have claws on all 6 digits on their hands, but the claw on their fully opposable thumbs are long, wickedly sharp, and absolutely used in combat. In practice, their unarmed strikes do 1d4 plus strength bonus worth of damage, but they can choose if it is piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning damage depending on what kind of striking technique they are using. They are active during the day and are herbivores. They prefer a rich variety of foraged fresh herbs, plant shoots, some soft tree barks, basically any form of fruit or vegetable, and they can subsist on bales of dry hay if they have no other option. They just find grasses quite bland and hard to chew. They are a refined and civilized species that prepares their food, much like we do. Over time, their cuisine has resulted in their own vegetarian foodstuffs that are packed with nutrients and flavors they enjoy. And far from needing to eat huge amounts of plants every day, they just tend to snack between a couple of more substantial shared meals each day. They prefer to have these large meals with company, and they don't tend to drink a lot. Coming from quite a dry world, they only need as much water as you or I. Dracon clothing and equipment is well made and also fits to allow them to run as unencumbered as possible. They are deceptively fast over open ground and can have a tendency to flight rather than fight in most emergencies. This behaviour is considered normal for them, but Dracon who spend a lot of their time around humanoids gradually take on more aggressive reactions as they conform to the social norms around them. Their individual need and entire society is based on being a member of a herd. It's extremely rare to find a Dracon living all by themselves. They actually become sickened by it, and prolonged solitude can result in a significant mental trauma, in rare cases, even death. The instinctual drive to be part of a herd can often see the Dracon try to create a new herd as best they can, even including other species, or they may consider the entire crew of their spelljamming vessel to be their herd, for example. The typical structure of the Dracon herd reflects their innate desire for order, civility, and tradition. This is also evident in the way they speak. They have their own language, they fluently speak Draconic, and they do speak Common, but usually with a heavy accent, and in each language they tend to be very formal and favour ornate phrases. Mainly this is due to the way they handle disputes and such in their herds, but more on that in a moment. Dracon herds are family-based, and the lineage and age of each individual is highly important. The leader, or Kaba, of the tribe is always the oldest Dracon in the herd. They regard this as a duty and something of a burden, and it's fairly rare for a Dracon to act in a deceptive way to attain any leadership position. The same doesn't hold true for non-Dracon members of the herd though. A dishonest person could falsify evidence of their age and just step into a leadership role with little fuss from the Dracons, though it does carry with it quite a bit of risk. And that is due to the way Dracon handle disputes. In the case of two herds coming together with one purpose, the very first order of business is always to determine which is the older Kaba, and that individual becomes the leader of the entire combined group. Ritualistic behaviour and ancient traditions are central to their culture, and so is the art of the duel. Dracons challenged to a duel in the formal way are obligated to accept, though the individual challenged does get to choose the weapon, the place and the time, but the challenger chooses the conditions for victory, be it to the death, first blood, surrender, and so on. Duels are normally fought with either their natural claws in their own form of wrestling, polearms, or with a thin-bladed longsword, and they would normally use this in combat. Before any combat the Dracon is expecting, they perform a ritual as they don their suit of well-made plate armour which covers their torso and the front of their body. They also employ large throwing darts in combat, and reserve another favoured weapon, the polearm, to more ceremonial tasks and very formal duels. Other species are not really expected to obey the customs of the duel, but the Dracons will still respond to a challenge from another race, with the condition that no extraordinary innate advantage of the other species is used, such as the Mind Flayer Mental Blast, or the use of magic, toxins, and so on. Along with the Kaba, the herd normally includes the Shala, a high priest and advisor to the Kaba and healer of their people. In any herd with over 30 members, there will be an additional Shala for each extra 30. Dracons have only relatively recently appeared from somewhere far off in the vast prime-material temporal manifold, to borrow a phrase from Matt Colville there. But they have always kept things pretty friendly with the likes of humans, elves, dwarves, and particularly lizard folk. Their many encounters with draconic beings always leaves them somewhat awestruck, particularly being in the presence of a true dragon. They see themselves and other beings with 6 limbs to be completely normal, and all 4-limbed species to be, well, they informally refer to them as the deformed or disabled, including lizard folk and dragonborn, though they are acceptably normal looking enough to be invited into their herd fairly commonly. They have some odd views on other species. For instance, they consider the endless variants of the tyrant, or beholder and their kin, race as being comical in appearance, and they have a hard time taking them very seriously. They just tend to laugh at the beholders even as they gallop or sail away from them. One reason for this is that the Dracon love to play a sport, quite similar to football, and the beholders resemble the ball they play with. They absolutely hate the Neogi, and there is a strong evidence that their species has encountered the Neogi long ago, as the dark goddess of their religion is a spider-like evil tempting deity who snatches children who stray too far from their herds. The rest of their divine pantheon, called the Herd of Ubkala, all travel together through the multiverse in a big herd. It's a particular honour when a herd leader is referred to as the Ubkala, the highest praise a Dracon can bestow upon another being. The rest of their pantheon is similar to the many gods of the dwarves, elves, and humans. Dracon often find it a bit confusing what the differences between these races are, which can lead them to being both accidentally and quite deliberately offensive. They really don't know that much about the history of any of those races unless they take a particular interest to find out. But among the herd, their focus is on tradition, custom, and ritual. They don't tend to be overly curious and take great comfort in the routines of their culture and the sense of connection and belonging it all gives them. They get along quite well with centaurs, though that culture is far too chaotic for their more lawful temperament. Intelligent individuals can be of any alignment, of course, and you do get the occasional rebellious Dracon who actually enjoys immersing themselves in other cultures and just going with the flow. Dracon are strong, and they have sharp senses. They can easily keep pace with a galloping troop of centaurs, and even master the very large and powerful bows that the centaurs use, while the centaurs benefit from learning the ancient martial arts of the Dracon and the use of darts and the halberd. While only a few Dracon have ever reached the world of Toril, they are present and can be encountered in such places as Kalimport, the dock in Karatur, and visiting far-flung and barely explored lands far from the continent of Faerun. They intensely despise all spiders, and if they happen to encounter the drow of Menzoberranzan and their demon spider queen goddess, things are absolutely going to turn ugly very quickly. They will also have a big problem with Arania, those intelligent spellcasting giant spiders who still dwell on the borders of Kalimshan and many other dark and secret woods. Out in space, the old spelljamming vessels originally built by the Dracon on their homeworld, presumably, resemble ocean-going sailing vessels such as the galleon, but modified to accommodate the crew's large size. When they do need to find a new vessel, it is often a modified hammership design. This suggests to scholars that the Dracon only recently discovered spelljamming and just converted their clunky old sea vessels in order to go out from their home planet to explore. Nobody knows exactly when that started or how long they've been travelling and exploring ever since, but one thing is for sure, Dracons watch the behaviour of true dragons very carefully. They consider true dragons to be messengers of their own pantheon's will, kind of like angels. Dracons are well adapted to dry conditions, but are not particularly well adapted to the intense heat and cold of an open desert. However, they are a very smart species, have an average intelligence attribute of 14, and with lots of experience with different worlds, they can figure out how to survive in most conditions. On the Dracon's own world, the weather is kind of atrocious, so they consider the weather on other planets to be quite pleasant, though they swear the fast-growing grasses that flourish in large parts of their homeworld can never be matched by any grasses from other worlds. As player characters, the large size and centauroid form of the Dracon makes them powerful, but their culture and instincts temper their power considerably. They're not brutes and not monsters. They are fiercely loyal to their herd and their friends outside of their herd. While their culture tends to consist of mostly lawful good aligned Dracon, they can be of any alignment, though lawful neutral and lawful evil are more common than any chaotic or true neutral alignments among them. Dracon raised outside of their own culture certainly exist, but whatever culture they are raised in, they will always tend to embody the norms for that culture thanks to their instinct to conform to the herd. I hope we do see an updated version of the Dracons for 5th edition Spelljammer, but for now, my name is AJ Pickett and I will be back with more easy listening RPG lore for you very soon.